yesterday we had close to 100 applicants, and the in Region 9 and Region 6 was like around 60 applicants, I think.
So no lack of interest.
Yeah.
We are gonna get started here in just a few moments. We want to see if we have a couple of folks that are going to be coming representing Miley and Gogebic-Ontonagon, so to speak, to answer questions. So we want to let those folks arrive. Here's Joy. Sable, can you let me know how we're doing on attendance too?
Yes, we have 12 attendees so far, and no one's in the waiting room.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's just wait one more minute. Joy, I know you're not on camera yet, but just wanted to check in with you. Should we still be waiting for Amanda Lopez?
I don't think, let's not wait. I
Okay.
think I am covering. I'm holding it down for my leap today.
All
She's
right.
able to join later, but just in case, we might as well not hold everybody up.
All right. Well, I'm gonna turn it over to Sarah Michelson then to get us started.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, everyone. So good to see all of you and see some new faces. I'm Sarah Michelson. I'm a technical assistance consultant working with ECIC and lucky to work with all of you on this project. So welcome to our first office hours. It feels like we were together for those of you who were in person with us both yesterday and probably like a year ago. That's what it feels like to me. I can only imagine for those of you working to stand up your applications. And I hear we have at least one application out there. So excited to hear how you all are doing. These office hours are really an open forum to hear from you, to have you learn from each other. And we will often be joined by our colleagues at MyLeap, as well as next week, our next office hours, we will have the registry here to give a short presentation. So generally, these are just your time to ask questions around a theme. We're having two each month for the next few months while you all get up and running, and then we'll move to one monthly. But again, these are really here to be helpful to you. So we'll get to Q&A and kind of peer-to-peer consultation in a minute, and we'll be listening for what TA resources will be helpful to you, what other support you need, and remind you what other support's available to you. But as we have, I think, a critical mass, I'll pass it back off to Joan so we can just get started today.
Hey, everybody. In case we haven't met, I'm Joan Blau. I'm the Vice President for Innovation and Evaluation here at ECIC. ECIC is leading the technical assistance for the Early Education Wage Initiative. Yay! I love that we can even say that. It's so incredibly exciting. And we are fortunate today to have with us Joy Milano from MyLeap. Joy is the PDG manager kind of overseeing all of the state's PDG investments. And we know that you may all still have some burning questions that you would like to bring to MyLeap and Gogebic-Ontonagon. So Joy may not be able to answer every single question today. I know she'll make a great effort to do so, but we'll also make sure to pass those forward. I want to just highlight once again our technical assistance resource library, which we shared with all of you. That is the go-to place for technical assistance resources and documents. We have a Q&A document in there right now. We've got information about my registry, etc. It is also the technical assistance library for the overall Regional Child Care Coalition initiative. So if you've got technical assistance needs outside of the wage initiative, you'll find information in there. We love it when you all suggest resources you need. That helps us make sure we're developing the resources that meet you where you are. So if today you've got ideas, please put them in the chat or follow up via email. Happy to have anybody unmute and ask their questions. This is an informal setting. The goal is that we're having a conversation. So what's on people's minds? What questions might you have for Miley about implementation?
I have a quick question. I don't know if this is, I did leave a message for Jared already, but MMDC is for Region 5, and we're just wondering, is there gonna be a reimbursement form that we should start being able to fill out to get some of that money in ahead of time? I know we requested that funding to come a little bit early so that we could get it dispersed in January. So I was just wondering, we haven't received anything about that.
I think I can probably answer that safely to say that Holly will definitely be getting everybody like statements of expenditures or forms that you will need to submit to GOISD in order to receive your funding. I don't have 100% timeline on when that is. I also have her on text. Like she's like, I'm just sitting in a waiting room. If you need something, you can text me. So what I can do is I will, of course, I'm going to take notes over here and I will share them directly out with her. She will be back and able to answer questions later today, this afternoon. So she's going to be working and she will be able to answer questions. I will put that on the list, but I do know, and I will tell you, yes, for sure, they will be supplying you with forms to use. So you don't have to make up your own. It'll have all the data elements in it that we need to submit. Then everybody is submitting the same form, and it's also going to cut down on like your own side work that you have to do to create something out of the blue. So it will be coming. I'll see if I can figure out timeline for you.
Perfect, thank you.
So Woody, I noticed you put a question in the chat. Could you just unmute and talk as specifically as possible about what it is that you are looking for? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the questions have to do with what's the timing of payments that will go to the providers who will then be paying their employees the stipends. And then what the expectation is in terms of tax liability and just, breaking it on down for them. And, we can try to figure it all out. But if that was something that was in the pipeline, just clear step by step, here's what's going to happen. Here's what you can expect. Here's what you can need to do with your with the bookkeeping treatment and the tax liability. It would be helpful. And I thought something like that was coming. And so just wondering about the status.
yeah, we answered some basic tax related questions in the Q&A. First one being, this is considered income. Also really put forth in a couple of different ways in the different responses to questions how crucially important it is for people to consult. You all are not, you already know this, tax professionals or experts in bookkeeping. I'm assuming most of you, though maybe Sarah F is in a slightly different place. I know that some folks are doing different things to get access to resources that already exist in their community to help people with tax preparation and tax liability assessment and things like that. So would love to hear what others are doing in response to Woody's question. And I think we're a bit challenged by the complications of the American tax code, so to speak, in that it's not simplistic exactly what someone's tax liability is going to be, which is why consulting with a professional might be the most ideal situation for people.
Joan, can I just,
Please, Wayne.
it sounded like you're asking Woody about the provider, not necessarily the teacher or the assistant teacher, right? Because you started with that this entity is going to actually issue these stipends. And if they issue the stipends and they're not doing a 1099, which may not actually be legal in that way, then they're on the hook for 7.65% of employment tax, plus maybe SUTA and FUTA, which is the unemployment tax. And the question then becomes, do they really actually get $300 or $200, or is it 200 minus the FICA and the SUTA and the FUTA? And that's what someone needs to address for those who are doing it that way. We decided because of that to issue a 1099, and then we're having them. But I know that they want us to do what we proposed and to see which works best, because that's what Holly was telling us yesterday. But those are going to be your considerations, is, and how does that work? And then how do you communicate that? Because then they get a $300 stipend, but that you take out, because that's the employer side. They act as an employer, they take out, so they by law would have to do that. But let me see what Janie has to say.
Yes, go ahead, Janie.
Well, I think the providers are probably set up better to handle those taxes than the educators on their own, who have probably never paid taxes other than having them taken out of their paycheck. So if you issue a 1099, they're going to be responsible for that. And I wonder if it gets into a dollar amount that would necessitate like quarterly payment of estimated taxes. I don't know. Obviously not a tax professional, but that's I think another consideration. So what I'm hearing is we need someone to answer those questions, because that level of detail is probably not in the TA resource library. And you're suggesting that we have each provider go to their own like CPA or other kind of professional?
I think many people work with the tax preparer of some kind. So that's one way. If you're center, you probably are for sure. Many families also use a tax preparer. We could, for example, offer potentially like a webinar with a professional tax preparer, CPA, who often works with home-based childcare providers, because that can be a bit more complicated. So if we can get clear on like what it is that is really needed versus like what resources are already present in your community that support folks with tax preparation. Like many places, that's like in Kalamazoo, that's organized through our public library. And there are people that are there who are retired, etc. They're available to talk about individual situations and advise people a little bit. So that may differ. I know United Ways sometimes offer that resource to folks. I don't want to say, I don't know, there may be other ways. And it may also be possible, though I'm not sure, through like small business centers or small business hubs that might be working with businesses. So we're happy to develop resources. We just want to try to make sure that we're really getting at the need that isn't met by community-based resources that may already exist, or that we're not discouraging people in any way from seeking their own advice from someone that they're already working with in their business. Joy, I don't know if you all have had any conversations about this. Are the employment tax and the unemployment taxes, et cetera, like, is the expectation that those are being pulled out from the $300, $200? Have you all discussed this?
It hasn't been a very in-depth discussion from the MyLeap perspective. We know that there's a number of different approaches being undertaken, and there's pros and cons to each one. We want to be supportive of the regions as they're trying to implement this, but really seeing this as like a potential TA need and happy to support and help organize as that works forward. But also knowing, like you expressed, Joan, what's already present within the regions and within communities that could be tapped into to help support. And then also wanting to be sure that if they're working, they can work with people who they're comfortable with if they already have relationships built up, but also we can provide sort of like the high level, like we need to think about these things. And I know I read all the applications, I reviewed applications and helped score them. So I know I think all of the regions at least have this on their minds as they were writing their proposals for funding. So that's the best answer I have. But also like always feed to Joan any TA needs you need, and we're working together to make sure that we can help support and not leave anybody hanging. So whatever that might look like, let all of us know and we can offer that.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Sarah, but I just wonder, how's the childcare back office thinking about this with what you're doing?
Yeah. So right now, my like official advice to anybody who asks is the same as yours of like, oh, you should talk to a tax professional. And then what I've been working on is finding tax professionals that we can refer to. And at this point, I've found some promising programs. I just haven't heard back from them to be able to say like, hey, everybody, talk to these people. But like one of them that I put some feelers out with is the State Bar of Michigan has a tax pro bono referral panel program that's available to it's for low income taxpayers who earn up to 200% of the federal poverty level, that it connects them to a pro bono tax lawyer. So I've contacted their person with that program to be like, hey, is there any way that maybe you could like roll what we're looking for into this, because it's what they do. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them, but that's really the path that I'm looking for, is finding somebody who does this work and who's hopefully, you know, already doing it pro bono and sees it as a service to the community, so that we can just kind of funnel people to the right resource. Because like I didn't know that resource existed. I feel like most of our childcare educators probably don't know that that resource exists, and just being able to tell them like, oh, you have questions, great. We don't expect you to have a tax person because, you know, a lot of us don't, especially if we're lower income. But here's who you can contact who can give you that support, and they know you're coming, they know about the program. So that's the take I'm taking, and just in that waiting zone right now.
Is that something, Sarah, that you feel like you could share with
Yeah,
me at least, and we can get it in the TA resource doc?
absolutely. Yeah. Once I hear back from them, I was gonna just share back what they have to say. And anyone else I hear from, I'll just, you know, loop all that information into you all for TA and to the Cool Kids Club and like everyone, because I just think it's valuable information in general.
Yes. What other questions do folks have that are
Can I
more?
just make one other comment, Jonah, about
Yeah.
this? That I mean, our United Way does that, and they have a tax coalition. So just for individuals. And I've talked to our person because I wanted them to be part of our webinar. What I think everybody needs to do though, and maybe that's why you guys might need to take the lead on this, is that
Yeah.
you sort of only have a short window. I mean, we just got off of our timeline meeting, and you only got a short window, because in a minute, those folks won't be able to focus on, like, for example, the provider stuff and so forth, because they're going into their season. And so many of them won't want to help you at January, you know what I'm saying, for some of these questions. But
Right.
so I would try to get that resource and get answers to, if you're a provider, kind of Woody's situation, what do you have to do? And something Jamie said made me think I need to go back and ask either Chat GPT or our CPA, CFO, about the 1099 route. We're doing that, and we're doing it because generally, and this is my own personal experience, you don't end up owing hardly any taxes on the amount of money we're talking about. So it's pretty negligible. But if they have to then modify the stipend because, and you probably don't even have that in your language. You got to know that now before you put that application out. So that's pretty high, high priority.
Yes, absolutely. What other questions do people have for Miley, Gogiba Gantanagan? Janie, your hand is up.
Me again.
Yes.
I think I've asked this before and I apologize if it was answered and I missed it. I am wondering if DHHS views this stipend as the type of income that will impact people's public assistance.
Yes.
They do.
Yes, that is in the Q&A document.
Got it. Thank you.
The department already sought their opinion, that it definitely would impact someone's potential eligibility.
And could I just say one other thing, because we were on with DHS today, and right after this call, we'll be on with the DHS, is that they're going to actually do our benefit cliff piece, but it takes them like 3 weeks to get approval. So if you're thinking that you want to have that happen, they need 3 weeks to get first approval to do it, and then they have to get approval on the actual slides themselves. So that's what they told us yesterday.
Got it. And this is to give a presentation.
They're gonna talk
conduct,
about the different benefits and all the different cuts, you know, because I guess apparently they're all different, and I didn't know that. And we have DHS in our office, so on our cost sharing navigation work. But the director said that, I mean, they just kind of outlined what they would cover, and then a couple of different scenarios so that people could see where they closely fit. And then of course it'll then need to be individual consults, which is going to be really difficult for a person to get. But I mean, for us, we have the person in our office so that she could take an individual case. So anyways, I'm just saying that's another thing that's got to happen like pretty quickly.
Yeah. So if you, I think I'm wondering, Shanae, will you have something that you can share potentially with the broader group, or will what is being shared only be pertinent to your region in terms of any kind of resource? Like this slide deck, could it be shared with?
Yeah, we actually are going
group?
to make that webinar available.
Okay.
And certainly we can share it with everyone. And it's facts information. The law, the policies are the policies. And they've changed.
That's what I was thinking, you know.
They're changing, right? That's what they're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be working on a very customized thing for this particular wage initiative. So happy to share.
Okay. That sounds awesome. Other questions that are, yes, please.
So this has to do with the timing of the first payment in January 2026. The providers who are going to be applying when we release our application will be on lots of different timelines in terms of their payroll frequency and when payroll goes out. We are thinking what we're shooting for is the end of the month of January to make sure that we have issued payments to them that they can then, pay according to their timing. Is that assumption correct?
Yes, my understanding is within the month of January is the expectation. I'm looking at Joy, who's also nodding. That's the expectation. So no one should feel like, oh my God, it has to go out, January 1. It is not like that. Yes, I know.
Everybody's on a different sort of like lots of different payment arrangements, payment timelines. You're right. And yeah, we were internally sitting around talking and going like, oh, January. And I said, we're not actually talking about like January 1st, are we? Because I don't think anybody's going to be available and ready to be able to do that. And so we're like, oh yeah, you're right. It's probably going to be later in the month. So as Joan said, the expectation is during the month of January.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to kind of segue us into outreach because that was our big topic for today. And Carla, I'm wondering, since you all have launched, could you talk, maybe just kick us off by talking about the outreach that you have done to be releasing your application? And then I'd love to hear from all the regions, ideally, what you're doing related to outreach. And I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah to kind of facilitate us through that.
Sure. So our outreach so far, we're still waiting on the outreach materials from Holly that she said were coming, but she said it was okay for us to send like some general emails with the information. So of course, at Child Care Network, we are also the resource center. So we have lots and lots of staff that can help us with outreach through the resource center in Region 9, and then in Region 6. We reached out to Julie, the resource center, and then a couple of her staff members are also in the coalition. So they all just started, sharing that email that had the link to our website where they can find the application and some FAQ documents and, lots more information about what the application process looks like. But that's really all we've done so far. And I think one social media post on Facebook so far.
Are others in the same kind of scenario? Have you done pre-outreach? Are you waiting for tools? Would love to hear from other folks as well.
For regions 1 and 3, we're waiting for the tools from Holly that she said we're going to go out. But we just got our application approved by her. So there's
Okay.
like 1 or 2 typos that she pointed out for me that I'm fixing. But then once we have those materials, we'll be ready to just like start launching things. And otherwise have just done kind of like a pre-launch, letting providers know like, hey, this is coming. We're going to talk to you first. Don't panic, sort of a thing. So.
Has anyone involved their resource center in any way?
As of right now, we have an info session webinar that we're going to record that's going to be hosted by our resource center. And so we plan to do that next week, next Wednesday. At least that's the plan as of right now. So depending on where we are with materials, we will give people a general outline, or we may be ready to open up our application at that point.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Janie?
I also forgot too that verbally we have shared it with our FCCN groups at our meetings.
Okay. Great. And Janie, did you have anything to add?
No, I was nodding to agree with
Oh, good.
everybody.
And even
Thumbs
with
up.
our fairly limited pre-outreach, we'll call it, our application is live, and between the 2 regions, we've already got over 150 submitted applications.
Great. Yeah, I was going to say the numbers you quoted before, Carla, those when you first got on. That's a lot for very minimal outreach. So somewhat unsurprising given the need, but also like a good sign that, folks are interested. How about others? Anyone developing plans? Go ahead. Yeah, thank you. Oh, you're muted still.
We can tell you what our plan is, and we just went over it again this morning with deadline. So we got like, whoa, way so much work to do, but it's fun. And Barbara can jump in with this. But basically, we're going to send a press release out on Monday. And in that, and this was Barbara's genius, is that we would collect people any information for people who want to hear more. And so they're interested and they want to hear more. So we can start getting a feel for all of that. We are working on a social media plan. And then Barbara's got a slew of list that she can talk about that kind of gives angles to it. We will send this information out because we do CACFP in multiple counties. So our people are going to walk it right into providers' places. And I know that's kind of uniquely situated. But Barbara, you want to talk about all the different lists that we're
Right.
sending out?
Right, so we're sending everything through a few different lists that we've, have in our constant contact database, and that's where we've created the landing page for people to request additional information or to be on a list. We're working with the resource centers, our regional coalition, because we have all the different members on there, are going to be obviously our FCCNs, our CACFP, and then we also have an education department. So anyone that's taken any of our courses in the last few years, which is a very large list, we'll be sending it through them as well. And then we're also making sure that we're hitting influencers and people that are in the space in early childhood, because they know about it from other meetings. So we want to make sure that we're using them as a resource to push it out as well. So it should go out to a lot of people, over 13 counties, so it should be out there. But yeah, it'll be
The
good.
folks in our GSQs, I'm sorry, said that they thought we'd get 6,000 applications. So I can't wait to see what Carla and you guys are doing. We are grateful that you were on that bleeding edge, because we usually, I don't know how we got it, but we got it like immediately. And I think one of our staff brought it into us. We were like, oh, wow. And so now we got like a great example to sort of kind of shamelessly copy, maybe, for just kind of a thing. And I know we talked to Holly about this, about some tweaks around that. So thank you for being out there in front, honey.
Well, I want to prompt others to ask questions, because that is the point of this time. Like, if you are both just like wondering, you do not have to have a fully formed question. I want to always emphasize that. Like, these are just times to be like, wow, that sounds interesting. But while I let you think of those, I'm wondering if folks, and Joan can correct me if like you're already doing this, but want to send those so we can kind of centralize like resources that you are doing, or even just forwarding the emails you send out, and we could work on doing some collection of here's what other regions are doing, so you can do that. I'm sure you're all willing to shamelessly copy and paste from each other and share resources. So if that's of interest, I think that's something we could also do. But also want to open it up for folks who just even have like half-baked thoughts, questions from what you've heard from folks or others who want to share about your plans, anything innovative or just simple that you're doing for outreach.
Maria, what are you all thinking about for your area?
That's so funny. I was just typing our resource center. I was like, I need to talk to you. So I do think our goal is to have a webinar, and it's falling upon final approval from Holly on the application, which I hope nobody takes this as me saying that she's not doing her job. I'm just saying she's can only do so much. She's one person, so she's trying to get through it all, and I appreciate that. That and the outreach materials, but our goal is we have been talking to our resource centers about, we've gotten all the lists of everyone, we've talked to all of our, we're organized as county teams, so all of our county teams are ready to just blast as soon as we're ready to go. So I feel like we're racing to the starting line and, kind of feverishly working as fast as we can we know it's going to be fast and furious, once we get all the materials. But yeah, so each of our teams will then be pushing it out into the county level. I was just texting our resource center saying, how about you co-sponsor the webinar with us? Because I think that's another that's a really good strategy that I hadn't thought about. So I appreciate that sort of co-sponsor because I do think engaging them in that process. We have been talking to them. I went to the staff meeting, their staff meeting recently, and talked about what we knew so far about the wage pilot and what our rubric was so that they understood. So kind of walking alongside them the entire time. But it does feel it's hard because we are getting a lot of calls from the press release that went out from local media wanting to talk to us and ask us questions. And, I keep saying, well, I can answer some of those questions right now, but I can't answer a lot of them. But, when we're ready, we'll tell you, I can only tell you what I can tell you. So people are excited about it. I do know that, and folks that I've talked to.
Super helpful. I
Could
love
you share
that.
what questions that they're asking though?
Sorry, what was that?
Say it
Could you
again.
share
Trey.
what questions that they're asking? Because ours is going on Monday, so I want to prepare. Like, what questions are you getting that you don't feel like you can answer?
Well, I think it's kind of, they want to know exact number of stipends that are going to go out. And, I try to explain to them that it's going to depend on the applications, that we receive. It's going to depend on, interests. And again, then the question becomes, well, why wouldn't they be interested in it? And it's trying not to go down those rabbit holes that I sort of redirect, because I don't, I don't want the story to be about the tax implications. I want it to be about why we're doing it and the benefits, and redirect it to the fact that we have an industry that requires these wage boosts because of the lack of pay. That redirect them that way, but they want to know, exactly how many people are going to get it, and what's the impact on that they'll have in their lives. And, I'll say, well, I'm we will be evaluating this project. And sustainability was another question, which I think that's a real, I talked to them about the fact that all of us are charged with working on a sustainability plan and, working with the state to identify what that would look like. And so kind of helping them to do that. I did the very political responses that I need to do, but I think it's, for them, they want to know exact numbers, and I couldn't give them the numbers. How many programs? I don't know that yet, right? But they really are anxious to know when the application is going to go live. And most of them said, will you just let me know when you go live with the application, and then we can redirect, folks to that application. So kind of holding on that.
So I do want to flag for people in case you haven't been in your email today. The first piece of the toolkit was provided to you today, which is approved talking points. So that's in your inbox. It also, if it's not yet, will soon be in the TA resource library. I think super helpful talking points, especially for press, but you also may, while you're waiting for the larger toolkit, you may find that there are things in here. But I would really encourage folks to use the talking points. Thank you, Janie. The goal is that we're collectively trying to stay on message here, which I know you all know how important that can be, because in some ways the regions are arbitrary and this is a statewide initiative. And so the talking points help to do that. And then the toolkit really, the rest of the items in the toolkit really build from the talking points. So there's, postcard templates, there's a PowerPoint template, there's sort of a brand type deal going on in the toolkit. So I know we're all anxious to see it, but I do want to flag that the talking points are out. So please start incorporating those. And if in using those, you start to realize that you need more talking points, like, hey, you guys didn't address these issues, send that stuff into the TA inbox so that we can flag it forward for MyLeap to help make that happen. Let's see. Carolyn, just wondering, are you able to talk at all about what your outreach plans are in Region 5?
I can a little bit. I know we're gonna be hosting some information sessions next week through various times to try and reach childcare providers. So we're gonna do nap times, we're gonna do evenings and early mornings to try and just figure out when is best, as well as just personal outreaches. Our coalition has some really great personal connections already, so asking them to invite their peers and coworkers to apply for the program has been kind of our main strategy.
And I think we have Region 10 on. I don't know, Tariq or Emily, do you want to talk about what your outreach plans are at this point, how you're envisioning that happening?
Yeah, so we're working through the county leads that we've selected or requested. And so we'll be working with the county leads in that way, relying on their individual meetings and such. So Oakland has a leadership meeting coming up on the 6th virtually. And so we're looking to communicate through there. Also sending out just, we have a MailChimp listserv, so sending communication through there. I wanted to set up some time where there's like office hours, if you could say, so I'm just available to answer questions. That's to be determined, but we're really open to, those office hours because I think that's the best way to approach it, right? Just having a space, click the link here, we'll answer questions. So I think that's the best way is to just disperse communication through the counties and then have an office hour available coming up in the next 30 days.
What else is top of mind for people today? We don't necessarily need to stay for the entire hour if people are feeling like, hey, I've got my questions answered. Yes, please, Emily, go ahead.
I just have a question for some of the other coalitions that are here. Tarek and I just got off a really great call with some of our different county partners as we're trying to finalize our application. And some folks have asked for just some examples of what this looks like in other counties to help ground our conversation. And I'm wondering who would be, if there are others that would be willing to email how you're thinking about this to us. We'd keep it absolutely very private, knowing that this is not, I think that most counties are not going to make necessarily selection criteria public immediately. But like I said, that would be really helpful to ground our upcoming conversation or our fall conversation next week. So I can put my email in the chat if you are able to share that information with Region 10.
Great. And oh, sorry, go ahead, Joan. No, I was just going to say, I think that's great, Emily, do that. And we may also just ask folks if folks, we can help be a hub of organization for examples that stay internal for folks as well. So I think in follow-up today, we can also ask folks, and those are great suggestions of like other things. It's just really helpful to see other real life examples of what each other are doing. And
Yeah,
Maria,
and I know we
Oh,
were
sorry, go
able to get some criteria that other counties are using, and I think it's I think the next step for us is kind of showcasing how all that criteria is being combined together to think of a holistic rubric, especially knowing that there's not a single childcare provider out there right now that couldn't use a little bit of a bonus for their wages. So I think for us, it's just helping guide that conversation really intentionally to support our county partners in developing that final criteria list.
Thank you. And Maria, I know your hand's raised. Go ahead.
Well, I have two questions. One is about, I'm getting a little nervous about the timeline. And I was just curious, like, are folks generally having a rule of, the application is going to be up by so many weeks and it's then determination of that and when notification happens? I mean, I love the Child Care Network's timeline. I just don't know that that they posted on their application. I just don't know if we are going to be able to do that with the holidays. So I'm just curious, like, is anybody using sort of a general rule of how long the application is going to be up, and available and open? You know, is it 2 weeks? Are you thinking 3 weeks? Like, what are you kind of thinking? Is it a month? And then the other question really is about support for childcare, especially centers that have a large number of employees, right? And so how do we navigate that conversation that maybe if I have 30 employees, not all 30 are going to get it? Or is it, I'm curious, like, how are folks that are giving the stipends to the employer, what direction are we, or any support in helping them kind of identify who is at most need of the employees to get access to the stipends? Does that make sense? Okay. So those are my 2 questions, and I just wondered if anybody wanted to talk about those.
I can share a little bit about what our thinking sounds like right now. So we are paying the programs, and so we're asking the programs to provide the list of all the employees that would qualify. And as we get our applications scored, those that score the highest and meet, we have like various different things that we have to pay attention to as we're scoring, and not just taking the highest, because we have to make sure that we have our counties representative of where our funding is coming from and things like that. But so our thought is we'll take the ones that score the highest. We will confirm the number of employees that they have at this point, and all of their employees that qualify will be part of this grant, and they will all receive the stipend. And we're going to keep track of how many employees we're paying. Is it full-time, part-time, and kind of keep track of the budget that we have until we are depleted. Like, we will just keep awarding those programs until we're like, okay, if we forecast our budget is done now. We've awarded everybody that we can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you would be, if they're all eligible, if the program scores high, then all of their employees that are eligible would receive it. I hear you.
Yeah. And we
Are you
had a lot
concerned
of
about distribution issues?
No, because we already have a scholarship program in place, and we already pay stipends in our apprenticeship program. So we've always had something in place where we're like verifying, like, did you pay this person? Like, we've had something in place for that, and we'll probably just follow those same guidelines. Like, the employees' names will be listed, their My Registry numbers will be listed, and we'll be able to verify, like, did somebody leave? Is somebody added? And if they do add new employees, we expect to be able to include them in the stipends also, because we had quite a bit of cash match, and that's where we're hoping like our flexibility will be if people are adding new employees, but employees are not leaving, like maybe they're opening a new classroom. So our cash match will be able to pick up that extra employee.
I thought that and maybe we don't have a region on that's doing that. I had understood that at least maybe one region where you had the large size providers, people were limiting the number of employees within a given setting to something like 5. And I don't know if we have anybody on who's doing that, but that's what came up for me, Maria. I think there is at least one place that's doing that.
Those were our original
Oh,
criteria.
your original criteria.
We
Okay.
submitted a request to revise that after we got feedback from some of our center-based providers that was going to create a huge morale problem for them. So we shifted to, if you're a multi-site provider, you will only one site will be awarded the benefit, the stipend. And we think, given the size of our providers, we should be okay there.
Thanks for clarifying, Woody. Shanae, did you want to? Oh, you're
Yeah,
muted.
it's trying to
There
get
you
up
go.
mute. I mean, we have been definitely turning this over and over and over and over. And certainly some of my staff were like, just give them all the stipend. I don't think I think we were silent in our proposal around this. So we were just going to try to do some analytics to try to see what that ended up look like. My thought was that we would only allow them up to a percentage for centers, so that we could get as many in. But it really, to me, speaks to what bodes well in the evaluation. More people or more kind of relationships and the politics, I guess, because this thing could end up being super small. If you, for example, have centers, and I don't even know what that, we said we were going to look up on a chat GPT and try to figure out, or maybe we can get some quick TA on what does my registry say, is the average number of people in a center that are teachers and assistant teachers. That having that question answered would be helpful just for do some quick extrapolation. But we were thinking that we were only doing some partial. We do know it would create some issues. And I was just this morning waking up going, I should have chat GPT. What issues will it create? And how would you respond to those? So, I mean, we've been like, it's kind of like, it's hard. It's hard, but I feel like we should, from a political standpoint, make sure that this has a reach. I mean, at the end of the day, just on what we proposed and created a budget around, we're going to try to get to about 250, 260, right? If we make that number too much smaller, to what extent? I mean, I can see the media eating us up, first of all, for all this money. And so do we make, I just don't know. And, the other thing, Joan, I guess, is there are a couple studies out there. Could you guys quickly, with the connections that you already have, ask them what they did and tell us what they did and why? Because we haven't quite landed, but we're going to be landing in the next week on the finalization of those criteria.
In specific, Shanae, to the question of large centers limiting participation, diversity.
Well, centers, period. Like, I thought that it would be, this is just Shanae, but I get to say, so
Yeah.
most of the time, unless they tack me, which they will, is that it would be a percentage of a center. It does create morale problems, like Woody said, but then don't we have to also attend to what does this look like from sustainability? What does this look like when it's too small or not reasonably impactful? I mean, it's just a tough thing. As it won't be big. What we're talking about is maybe 2,000. That's significant, but not comparatively of the number of folks that are out there. So I don't know the answer to this one.
Yeah.
It is stumping me and keeping me up at night. So a
I
little bit
think
more
the other
information.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I'm struggling with, Shanae, is that not every county is the same, right? So like we have a Cass County that only, I'm serious, has 30 licensed providers. That's home and centers. Like there's not a lot. So, it's going to be a little different than a Kalamazoo County that has, almost 270 licensed providers. Like, so it's,
So we
and
said that what we would do was we've calculated obviously the percentage based on population, and that of the slots that we would try to distribute them there, and that's what we're going to work with our selection committee about. We're going to do it from an electronic standpoint, but then they're going to verify that, and where there's anything that's over, like for example, Kent County is 40%, but Lake is 3%. So we're going to try to distribute it fairly equitably geographically, right? We're gonna but we just don't know about the teacher. Maybe we just haven't had, it's been running so fast, we haven't had time to figure out how might we calculate this. So, but
Yeah, we
we
did
definitely,
decide to do half of our total allocation was evenly split around each of the counties. But
yeah,
like I was saying more about if there is one large center, because that's all they got in Cass County, like
mm,
it might
right.
be that we, so it is going to be a little I'm looking forward to seeing the applications that come in because I think that that's where we're going to maybe get into some of these like nuances that um and so yeah, so I'm a little nervous about this unknown as far as who's going to apply and who's not going to apply.
We're trying to
Any thoughts?
reduce the amount of what you call subjective stuff that we do to this, so we're going to run it through analytics. It'll tell us what the distribution is and tell us that comparatively to what we got in. And then the only thing that we're going to actually need to be weighing in on with the committee is anything that's outside those bounds. So,
Yeah, I think it is a balance. Like you all are talking about the different dynamics. And I think honestly, when I'm thinking about sustainability, I'm thinking about sustaining more. Like it isn't going to really shift the underlying root cause, so to speak, that we're all working on with this initiative if we only can keep going with the people that are going to get this particular wage stipend. It actually needs to expand. So any kind of sustainability strategy that the state pursues has to address this piece around reach. Like, what does it take to get to? So, if we fundamentally serve some across the state, X% of providers, like what's the plan to keep on adding subsequent percentages? Because I think that none of this is going to be corrective to the dynamic that we already see with existing wages, where people can literally offer like a quarter more an hour or even less, and people will move to another program. So, you know, especially if you're saving place for new people to get added, those people could be coming from other programs that aren't getting stipends. And that's just a reality. It's not, we can't, like, I don't blame anybody for doing that, but the dynamics that dog our workforce need additional strategies and sustainability that's bigger than just keeping this $16 million. Like, yes, I would like to keep it, but we need to do more than that fundamentally.
right. And it's like trying to get to a question in the research and evaluation around what do we think, what's the tipping point? Generally, people talk about tipping points around 30%. Just remembering the collective impact work that I did before. So that's a question that definitely has to be answered. And you're right, it's going to take. And where are we going to even come in at now? Where's the number on the total number of teachers? Do we just have to pull that up, or can you guys be pulling that up? Can you do it by region? I mean, by regions. Yeah. We certainly have a lot of data power, but we don't have enough time. So to answer a lot of these questions that we know we need to answer. But that's critical. I mean, you're funny.
Yeah, I'll definitely circulate the questions to my registry that were raised here about could we get a report run? Like what would it look like to do something like that for folks? And I'm thinking kind of obviously now, but like, could we set up a cadence for people to be able to look at that as we close? So
yeah.
Which we need to do, Sarah. So
I know, like I'm trying. The 5 minutes, I'm not the timekeeping is, I love this stuff and hearing you talk, but we are 2 minutes to time. I know on the ECIC plate, we will do what Joan just said, which is reach out to my registry, but also put together some thoughts around the tax implications and what resources might be helpful to you. We might circle back to just say, are these the right kind of questions to answer? I heard we're going to share some applications, share outreach materials, and I will potentially outreach to some of you who are weighing decisions. But as we follow up, we'll also remind you we're here for TA. Specifically, I'm here for TA. I would also say Joan, but Joan is playing a lot of roles internally now. So happy to talk through any of these decisions. Again, a reminder, TA can just be like, I'm stuck and I don't even know what my question is, but could you give me 30 minutes of your time just to talk to you and see if we can even surface where I'm stuck? So there is no limit. It can be as specific as general. You know, I'm here for you if you're having like a meltdown, you just want to talk to someone who's done it a few times. But looking forward to hearing from you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next office hours is on the 21st. You should have that invite. If you don't, or you want to include anyone else, reach out to the technical assistance email, and the ECIC team will get to you. So thank you, everyone. Good to see you all.